Hi, welcome to Delivered, where we are delivering mothers, midwives, and magic. My name is Jasmine.
My name is Sherry.
And I'm Erica.
We are in our second part talking about food, right? Talking about nutrition during pregnancy, during labor. We talked about eating in
Like
labor.
cravings, like eating.
Labor.
We talked about food cravings and our relationship with food and how that plays a role. And I think we just wanted today just dive really deeper into that and give some really helpful suggestions. We talked a little bit about meeting clients where they're at. We talked a
Yes.
little bit about recognizing that correlation between food and healthy body. Since you get pregnant, you start thinking about someone else. Isn't that funny how we do that, right? Like, that all of a sudden we get pregnant and we go, oh, I guess.
We should probably care about what I'm putting into my body,
But-
considering someone else is depending on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm listening to this really good book right now called Good Energy. And I'll make sure Adam shares that. It's on my Audible account. I drive a lot. And so yesterday I drove to Kingman, so I'm listening to it. And she used to be a surgeon and she's kind of walked away from that and is kind of exposing some of the negative things about the medical world and how they jump to surgery. That, the people who kind of it became this avalanche as you listen to her talk, this avalanche of, oh, well, we have to build to have the thing to do this. And it's easier if we do this versus this. And we get better insurance reimbursement if we do this. And, just stuff that's like back of house stuff that's just really affecting the front of house. When I go out to dinner, I know because I've worked in a kitchen before, the chaos that's happening in the back. But when I come and pay money, it's because I don't want to be a part of that chaos. I'd go
Right.
home and create that chaos. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want excuses about it. I just want to get my food. I don't want to be bothered with what you have to do to make that happen. I think that's kind of like you look at the medical world and it is kind of that business piece. There is a chaos to the back of house. And I think it becomes toxic and unhealthy when the back of house is affecting the front of the house. And that
Sure.
feels like what's happening. Is that kind of what you guys see as well?
I
Or?
would have to agree with that. I also feel like sometimes individual providers, personal, for lack of a better word, bias can enter into nutrition. And I say this because I was just at a birth. We were at the hospital. And an hour later, she had her baby. So eating in labor was never an issue. I did take the opportunity to ask her doctor. I went to see her the next day. Her doctor was fine. I've never met this person before, but they were like, we really don't like women to eat in active labor. And I said, why? I'd like to know, what is your reasoning behind that? Well, we don't want them to vomit or have a bowel movement. I'm thinking, but if they're eating right then and there, and then an hour later, they're pushing out a baby, and if they're pooping out food that they've eaten 24 to 36 hours ago. I pointed that out to the physician and she just kind of looked at me.
Yeah.
She was like, it really is, I guess, up to the individual doctor. I said, but why would a doctor not want a patient to eat in labor? And here's where I thought it got interesting. She never gave me a straight answer. She just kept circling around.
Well, because she knows she's not going to give you the answer you actually wanted.
It's like running a huge marathon. We need that caloric intake to be able to finish it up. And I said to her, I was like, now let's be honest. Most women, when they're in active labor and they're pushing a baby out, eating is the last thing on their mind. They're probably vomiting. Why wouldn't you want your patient to get all of the energy they need to do this huge job? We don't tell triathletes not to eat, right? So why would we do that to mom? And I just thought it was interesting that she would not, like you were saying, she's not going to give me the answer I want.
But I think you bring up like that really good piece of saying, if I have this great metabolism, right, I'm going to eat dinner and I'm going to evacuate a certain amount of time after that, right? Well, a lot of times, especially in labor, the digestive system kind of goes slow. It slows
takes a
down.
hiatus.
It takes longer.
Yeah.
So what happens when you have a pregnant human and what if she's not going to evacuate what she's eating now for 12 hours? You don't know how that's going to affect it. And if you're going to deal with it and it's a part of labor, here's the thing.
Yeah.
If puking and vomiting is a part of labor, you don't stop that thing from happening.
No.
You figure out how you manage
How to
that
accommodate
thing from
it.
happening.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so to me, you're just looking at it from the wrong angle.
Well, I think, like you said too, getting that runaround answer, that's something that we brought up last time where we had our researcher call around and we're getting this runaround. The providers are saying, well, it's really up to the nursing staff.
They're
if you
passing
can
the
eat.
buck.
Or
They don't want to take, nobody wants to take responsibility for
yeah.
making any sort of decision.
They just want you to come have their baby at a
Yes.
facility. So they're willing to kind of make sure they're selling you.
So
The-
long,
the
so long
lack
as you
of a
do what they
written-
want when you get there.
The lack of a written policy too, I think
Yes.
is monumental
Yes.
because these could be the very things that people are looking at when it comes to deciding where they are going to have their baby, and not having that, I think that's pretty big. I think that's really big.
Well, and I think that's why, like as a midwife, especially those of us who've gone through the NARM process, whether we chose to stay in that venue or not, you have to write out policies and procedures, like a whole practicality. If a client said to me, I would like to see your policies and procedures. How do I manage twins? How do I manage GBS? How do I manage gestational days? And then underneath it says, this is the steps that we take. Here's the protocols we follow. Now, are there times I step out of that? Yep. And
Sure.
I'll say to a client, hey, this is normally my protocol.
But in this case, I'm willing to do this.
Right. Like because I'm also working for my clients, there's got to be some wiggle room and some management. But if a hospital's labor and delivery unit doesn't have a written policy on something, I don't know how they can hold anybody to it. That would be interesting to talk to a lawyer about the legalities, the legal standpoint of going, if you are holding me to an unwritten policy, how can you hold me to that?
Okay. When money and commodifying this service that we as women go through, this is something that I need to have concrete. Give me something that I can say, this is where my money is going. And whether or not I decide to go to a different facility,
Yes.
that's so important when all of my money is tied up in this decision and in this procedure. There absolutely should be these policies written out.
Right. And I think we need to share that, below for local humans. So you could go say, Mountain View, what is their policy? But remember, that's just an oral policy. When we talked to our researcher, they were like, oh my gosh, I tried asking this question in so many different ways. If you came to a midwife and you said, I'm not allowed to eat in labor, we'd be like, absolutely. Are there times that we couldn't eat in labor? And we'd say, oh, sure. If we see this and this, we would maybe recommend a less of a diet. Or if you didn't want to eat, we wouldn't necessarily make you eat. I might get a blueberry in there, but in our brain, we just go, we have a yes, no answer. Now, if somebody comes to me and they're seeking something I don't have, there's where the transparency leaves, right?
But that's
the transparency of me going, I actually don't do that. Or I can't, like for transports, for example,
But
like
we-
a lot of midwives
say
go on
if
transport.
You're comfortable saying, you know what,
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. Let me try and find it for you. I don't remember the last time a doctor or a nurse said that. They will make shit up on the fly. They'll
to
make it
sound
up.
like the smartest person in
Yes.
the room, right? Or to have this certainty around something.
We don't need to be the smartest person in the room. We need to be the most honest. We need to have the most integrity.
What I wanted to say was this part of being transparent. For example, a lot of clients want to know, will you go with them on a hospital transport? I had to make a decision. I hated going. I felt like they treated my clients worse. Not all the time. And then sometimes I wouldn't go and I'd
That's
see them
true,
get
though,
treated
to
better.
that, yes.
So then we started training transport doulas. And then, so I know when I'm in a consult and somebody says, do you go on the transport? I'm totally honest with what I am willing to do. And in saying that, I know I might lose that client because another midwife would say, oh, absolutely. I'm going to go with you to hospital. I'm going to stay with you the whole time. Da, da, da. Whereas I have all these caveats. Well, I'll go with this, this, and this, but ideally, no. And I might have a client walk away.
I'm the same way, though. Like I've been asked, well, what happens if we go in? What's your role?
Yeah.
And I'm really honest. We have this form that you came up with, that NAPM transport form. I use that. I keep that in my computer and I will fill that out because when I do transport, I make sure that everything gets faxed.
Exactly.
I will go in with my client if they don't have a doula. I will not necessarily stay because of something Sherry said, which was 100% correct. A lot of times, if the staff knows that you're the midwife, and let's be honest, they all know us, there's a really good chance that the client Now a patient is going to be treated with far less respect, far less care, and far less compassion because of our presence. So I really like to get my clients settled, and I like to get out of there. Not because I don't want to support them, it's because I really believe that my presence compromises the quality of the care that you're going to receive. Now, does that happen all the time? No, absolutely not.
And just how we say a home birth isn't a hospital birth at home.
Right.
In a transport scenario, we're not trying to make the hospital a home birth.
No,
Right.
we're going in for a
It's
reason.
now like a medical
Yeah.
reset.
Mhm.
And I'm not actually going to argue. That's the thing. I'm not a doula. When it changed for me was COVID. The hospitals weren't letting us in because I happened to be on the board at one of the hospitals. I was in one of the board meetings, and what they told me was, we can't not allow doulas in because you can't legally stop someone from doing their profession. And doulas, that is their profession, to go into the hospitals. At least what I was told. As a midwife, if I don't have rights and privileges there, I'm not allowed to be there because it's not part of my job or scope. Some people would argue it's my job to see that all the way through, and I would get behind that argument, but that's just what the hospital was saying during COVID. So then we were like, okay, and everybody knows I'm a midwife when I go in. I can't play that role
Right.
if I'm a doula.
Yeah.
But that's why we trained some transport doulas and allowed that to happen, because we did want that continuity care.
Continuity
But
of care.
usually I've been with someone for 24 hours. I'm useless. I need to go eat, sleep, and maybe I'll come back and visit when it comes to business and competition. You're almost willing to say whatever it takes to close the deal.
And not be transparent. So yeah.
And that's what it is.
Sometimes that's what it
Sometimes
takes.
that's
Yeah.
what it is.
I think when we view this like eating and labor thing, because last week, the moment you opted for an epidural, you were considered high risk. So that kind of falls into that transparency piece. And I guess
Right.
that's the business piece. Why is nutrition so removed when it is probably the most important thing as midwives when we do all this research on herbology and nutrition and wellness and
Yep.
health and Ayurvedic medicine and all of that, to go, how do we help humans heal themselves? Because we believe the body to be wonderfully made and perfectly capable, including the mind, right?
Which is most
And the
of it.
individuality that a person has,
Right.
and the right to self, and that autonomy. And so what does that autonomy mean? And the inability to go, I'm not going to allow you to eat in labor, to me is like the ultimate power move to say, you know what? Come have your baby here. We'll take care of you. But we're going to make sure that you get to a point of exhaustion, fatigue, suffering, and pain because you're begging us for an epidural. So even if you came in with the natural mindset, we're going to make this as difficult as possible. Not everyone. There are good situations, but from a business model standpoint, when you want to gain control over another human, you take away their right to what? Food. A primal, no one can exist without food and nourishment. We are essentially
Water.
food.
Or
We are
water.
food and drink.
Yep.
This is what this is. So whatever I'm putting in my body is what I am. And so what does that mean about a group of humans that go, we are going to withhold this basic human need?
I remember asking a nurse once, why? Why do we want them to eat and drink? This nurse, God bless her, she's not here. This is forever ago, so she's not practicing anymore. But she gave me the most honest answer, Erica. We don't want patients to eat or drink in labor because they may end up needing surgery. And we don't want them to vomit on the operating table. That stuck with me.
Well, sure, because now you're not coming here to have your baby. You're coming here to be prepped for surgery.
Yes, that resonated with me.
Like I was getting my thyroid removed. Like if I was going to go to surgery on my thyroid or get a hysterectomy,
you would know.
they would
waiting
prepare you for
12
surgery.
hours.
They'd be like, for 12 hours, this is what you're eating.
But that
you
was
have
the
clear
most
broth,
honest
blah, blah, blah.
answer I ever got. And I was like, wow. Like, thank you for being honest with me.
I've
And
heard
she
that.
was like, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah.
And I remember she was like, I know you feed
But
your
don't
clients.
you think that, like, this idea that it's control?
Of course it is. Absolutely.
What do you do to make someone vulnerable?
Take away their power.
Oh my gosh, strip them down naked, Hook them up to IVs and medication.
Strapped
And
twice
and
around the belly.
like you've got wires coming everywhere.
You can't
beeping.
walk to the bathroom. Getting up
changing-
and going to the bathroom
chained to
is
this-
a process.
Can I go
Can
use
I
the
go to the
bathroom?
bathroom? Let me go and just unplug
that
everything,
stuff. Unplug
and
it
we will
all.
go to the bathroom. Is that okay? Are we going to get in trouble?
No, no, you're paying them. They work for you.
So I
They were
don't
free-
say, I say, nay, nay. This has nothing to do with evidence-based care.
No,
This about everything to do with cha-chang.
How many Benjamins can we get out of these people?
Yeah. And you know what? This would be, I know we have a call to action at the end, but you know what? Fine. You're a care provider. If you're a OB or a labor and delivery nurse, if
We would
this
love to hear
upsets you,
We'd love to hear from you.
why? Sit and do I need control over another human being by removing basic essential needs like going to the bathroom, food, and water?
We've taken away this person's ability to eat or drink during labor, and then they have this baby. No woman looks great in the hospital after she has a baby. She looks like she just died. They're like, oh, this
With the
is
baby
so
on the chest.
amazing. Yeah, they're on the back of their heads, right? Because they haven't was a doula. I did have access to the nourishment room. I'd run and make this stupid sugary drink. Apple
Juice for sure.
It was Sprite, apple
juice.
juice, orange juice, and cranberry juice.
Yeah.
So it was all the juices in with Sprite and a lot of that
Jell-O.
great ice.
Jello usually in there.
Yeah, I never saw the Jello. I think the Jello was
See,
gone by the
I'd see
time
all
I
the-
did. But
oh my God.
I would give these women this,
Is that crazy that you're at a hospital
and the food is terrible.
and the food is
So
all
unhealthy.
processed?
Even the
all-
prepared food that they bring you
unhealthy.
in postpartum.
It's awful. But that's
bad.
my point, is that you're now in postpartum, you're spent, you're exhausted, you have had no caloric intake probably for hours. Someone hopefully is putting a sugary drink in front of your face to give you a little bit of energy. But then you're expected now to nurse this baby. Like with what reserves? You have none because they take away your autonomy. Okay, I'm getting a little
No,
fired.
wait.
Tell
No,
us.
I was thinking, so think of our practice. You
Right.
said something. This is me like giving you kudos for this. You said something that made me think of something. And that is when I was a doula, you'd go to the hospital and after the client goes through labor without that inability to eat, even if we're sneaking her baby things, usually after you have a baby in the hospital, you're pretty ravenous. I have seen clients be ravenous. Now, when we're at home and people can eat and drink in labor, even if they're vomiting, I don't find that they're hungry. Getting someone to eat after
It's really hard. Yeah.
is hard.
They don't want
And so to me, I go, okay, that's nature saying, why would someone need to get to a point where they're ravenous? Yes, they ran a mile and they have to replace what they lost. But if they were fueling consistently,
They wouldn't need
to be ravenous.
It's 100% right. Because we see women who birth at home,
Yeah.
we get them tucked into
Yeah.
bed, they're nursing their babies. And I know for me, I'm always like, let's get her something to eat. I can't stand it when somebody brings a new mom toddler food. Don't bring her toddler food. Please do not bring her. Yeah, don't bring her toddler food. Like something substantial, even if she just picks at it. But oh yeah, if somebody brings in a thing with some carrots and some fruit and maybe some yogurt, I will be like, she's not a toddler.
You want them to eat, right? You want them
Yeah.
to get that energy up because you have this task.
But what Sherry said is right, because at home, they're not dying of hunger. Because
Even if
even
it's grown up,
that
yeah.
blueberry, that tiny little blueberry makes a huge difference.
That
Whereas-
little tiny honey stick, that
Yes,
little bit of
just
glucose.
that little bit.
But they're not hooked up to the IV. And I think that's where the hospital gets away with
A
that
lot,
is they're
yeah.
giving you that minimal amount of usually sodium
The
chloride or
sodium,
whatever
yeah.
is in the saline bag.
Yeah.
So you're at least getting hydration through your IVs.
I also think, honest to God, I feel like it's also lazy, because who wants to clean up someone else's vomit? I've seen nurses get pissed,
Dude,
but I don't care.
make
Like,
Ellis's bags that are like, they're like sent from the birth gods. That used to not be a thing. I struggle with vomit at a birth for sure. For sure. I hate it. I have to like, I do little, don't join her. Don't join. So now those little blue,
I love those bags. I love those.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They're wonderful. They're so easy. In a hospitals, I think we just graduated from the little kidney bowl. the little kidney
Oh
bowl.
God, the
That's like,
splashback. Like,
yes.
come on.
And so now we have these great
No,
access bags. Let people take
Oh,
responsibility for
seriously.
themselves. I vomited in one of those.
Oh
In a
yeah.
kidney bowl.
Oh yes.
And it went like this. My sister-in-law held it up to me and it went,
my gift to
Are
you.
these fun? It was so fun. Nobody's gonna want to eat it.
except and I woke up in the middle of the night when I haven't had anything to eat
Dying.
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
So like, and I'm going to throw up anyways. And I think that's it. And who is that for? Is that for the ease of the humans working, or is that for the ease of the human going through the labor?
I just said
Right.
it. It's for the people who are working there. Everything,
And that thing is, though,
everything in the hospital is done for
For
the
the doctor.
convenience for those who are providing care. Not, and here's the other
Which
thing
means
that
the
gets me.
hospitals need to
Labor
staff
and
things
delivery, no
properly.
one's sick. No one is sick on labor and delivery, but they're surrounded by all these sick people.
Yeah.
So they're being treated like sick individuals. You're not sick. You're having a baby. And I hate to break this to them. We as women have been doing this since the beginning of time. Like since
Yeah.
the Big Bang, we have been having babies. We know how to do it.
Right.
We don't need the hospital to tell us how to do it. We don't need the hospital to say, oh, you can't eat.
Like what you said, it has to do with how it's ran as a business. And so if you go to the person who's running the business, they have to employ enough individuals. If you have a nursing staff or a hospital staff of doctors or whatever, and they're managing this care and they're going, oh my gosh, if I have somebody having a natural childbirth and they vomit or they have to use the bathroom more, and they take more of my attention, now the hospital instead of going, okay, what I'm asking of you as a nurse or a doctor is more than the client can do, because you can't take care of 8 clients who need that care. So what should you do? You need to hire more staff. I don't
But
blame
they don't
the
want to do
nurses
that
because
because
they're
that affects their
understaffed.
bottom line. That
The OVs understaffed.
and administrators don't want to hire more because it affects their bottom line. It's like Ricky Lake and Abby Epstein's movie, The Business of Being Born. I'll never forget the first time I saw that. I was brand
Oh.
spanking new doula. I was blown away by that. Like, wow.
And I get streamlining costs. I look at the LC piece. We used to have a lot of LCs while running Mama at one point, and we were going into the hospitals. The lactation counselors that work there had relationships with the hospitals. All of a sudden, they were letting less and less LCs into the hospitals, and they were going to hire their own LCs. So then we were looking for them to hire their own CLCs or IBCLCs or whatever. What they did to minimize that was they just had all of their nurses on the postpartum unit take some additional courses in lactation. And now they say, these nurses have lactation experience. They are your lactation counselor. But they didn't provide the time. That same nurse is still doing all her other jobs. And that lactation piece, they know it's a huge piece, but they're hoping you will collapse and just turn to formula, because
That's even more money. That's even more bonus. That's another check.
and that's not I'm about all types of feeding. Like if you want to formula feed,
that is best
I
for sure.
support
Yes,
that, right?
That is best.
But
Yeah.
don't let someone else make that decision for you.
But if you are going to offer support, that laboring person,
Right.
and that now has that new baby that needs assistance, and you're trying to help them, if that's your job, but how are you supposed to do your job and add this job
And not get paid more.
when it comes to nutrition? I think midwives know that alignment with your mental, spiritual, physical has to happen. And it comes from the movement of your body, what you're putting in your body, your environment, and what you're surrounding yourself with, right? So when somebody comes into your office and they're like, I'm stressed, I'm putting on weight, I'm not gaining weight, I don't have an appetite, I'm gravitating towards sugar, I'm breaking out, I have rashes on my skin. As midwives, we know we have to dive into that to find out
And the first
where
thing we
it's
ask is,
coming
what are
from.
you eating? That, at
How's
least
your
for me,
appetite?
like
Yeah.
if somebody comes in like with a litany of things that are wrong. So what has your diet been like the past 5 days? And they just look at me.
How much sleep are you getting?
How much sleep? How
Is
much are you
something stressful
hydrating?
going on? And then they
Yes.
go,
Mhm.
oh,
Oh,
yeah. And
all
I
of
think,
these
oh, yeah.
things have a direct bearing on your bodies.
But I think the medical system, my understanding is they kind of look at the fluff of nutrition and wellness, and
Do they
because
really?
they
Do
don't
they
make
really?
money off of wellness.
They don't.
So
That's what
there's
you're saying,
no
that is-
incentive. There's no
Yeah, that's true.
incentive for healthy.
Stuff in
Stay
the
out of the
hospital,
office.
it's all awful.
What did you prescribe? What surgery did you do?
What are your
Mhm.
You don't get
medications?
paid by going, I counseled the client on nutritional health. It's a code, but I've seen how the reimbursement looks on that. Have you ever seen a reimbursement for nutrition counseling
No.
during your global midwifery bill? Never been reimbursed from an insurance company for that. And so they look at it and go, we're not being paid to counsel people, even though the fluffy is the
That's
most
what
important
matters the
piece.
most. Yeah, it is. Just like nutrition is, right? Because our food is our medicine. So nutrition in labor is so important. And like we talked about last time, that's the biggest question. People come in here and they say, what can I not eat? Can I eat this? Is this something that I should be eating? It's the biggest question we get. It's one of the biggest questions we ask too when people come in and they go, oh, this is what's happening with me. I'm having headaches or this is going on with me. It's like, well, what are you eating? How can we make sure that the nutrition you are getting is benefiting and being effective in your body and your baby's body?
One of my original partners, Tiffany, was always about the babies. She loved the babies. And this is just what I'm thinking back when it was just the two of us at the beginning. And Tiffany was all about the babies. And people love that. People want you to want like their babies, you know? And for me, it's always about the moms. For me, it's about the prenatal visits. And I talk to people for an hour or more. And I remember a lot of my students being like, oh my gosh, you guys just talk so much. And yes, I know sometimes as a midwife, we share the same story more than once. It's just an issue. But for me, it's because I want to get clients to open up. And I feel like if I'm vulnerable, they're say, oh, this is a safe space so that I can be vulnerable. And the more we can have this exchange of energy, the more I learn about them, the more I see them, the more I'm able to show them where to look for their answers. Once they come here, you have an opportunity as a care provider for somebody to go, I want to invest in this and I want to invest in my family and myself. And some of them have started and they want to dive further into it. And some come in going, this is how I live my life. I know it could be better, but please just show me grace while I get there. And so I think walking along that journey with people when it comes to nutrition and eating, I think that's just a really big piece to it. And I like the connection of the mom. So I've always been about growing moms. When we were delivering mothers, midwives, because I've trained a lot of midwives, and magic, I think we really need to change that to make feels more. Especially today, we're just in
Our dark web tagline, mayhem.
dark web mayhem. But for me, it's because that to me that I like the mom. Now obviously the whole
Love
package,
babies.
the whole
Love babies.
package, but like everybody's someone's baby, man. And everybody, I remember being in pregnancy sometimes. I remember with my fifth baby, hiring this female obstetrician. And we lived in a really small town. So I had amazing OBs in small towns. And I never felt like a number. They always took the time to talk to me. She was like, what is the thing you want the most out of this pregnancy? I said, this is my fifth baby. I'm tired. I just want someone to love on me, boost my morale, and remind me that I can do this. And I said that the whole pregnancy. And so that was the only connection I needed from my obstetrician. Because the truth is, I was an herbalist at the time. I made all my own food. Everything I did was organic. My births were natural. I just needed a care provider that oversee my labs, oversee the health and well-being. But I just needed a care provider that made me feel like I could do this and that I could do better. I needed to leave the visits feeling inspired. Like there were things that I could improve in my life and see results. I could go in and someone go, oh my gosh, you're allergic to this food and this and this, and you should probably not eat those things. You should not be drinking coffee every day. Oh, that might be why your stomach is upset every day. I needed someone to hold me a little bit accountable and do it in a gentle way. I think our clients are the same. They want to be held accountable, but they don't want to be made to feel children and they don't want to feel bad and they don't want shame. So how else do you have a relationship with someone where you're in authenticity, you're transparent, you meet them where they're at, and you also have to be a little vulnerable with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's, I think, where the medical world, they are held to a standard, that liability of you will get sued if you do this. If I see that blip on the monitor, we'll get sued. So I know the world, I understand just like a fraction of the world. And I imagine it's a really hard job. But do I think we could do better? Absolutely. The place and the call to action piece is, as laboring humans, you are going to have to possibly fight and pave the way, because that's how we get change. Because your dollar that you're spending, we refer to you as clients. You are paying us to provide you with a service. And that's what you're doing at the hospital.
But it's not viewed that way.
It's just not
not
viewed.
viewed that
But
way.
you could go to your care provider with information saying, I have some information about this.
Can't promise it'll be well received,
No.
but I think
But
it's
eventually, if you take your dollar somewhere else, it's the only way it changes.
very
And
true.
it's hard to do. There are things that I try to be conscientious of, like where I shop, but sometimes I break that rule. But sometimes I try to be aware of that. In a perfect world, I would only give my dollar to somebody who was ethical and cared about how their
That's a
factory
whole
was
other
sustaining
topic
that. I
right
would care
next.
about
Yeah.
those things. But I feel like right now we just have to fight for these small, do our best, put our
Is it a
money where our
hill
mouth
worth dying
is.
on? Is this a hill worth dying on? That's how I look at it. In the hospital, if I'm with a client, is this a hill worth dying on to argue with them or just let them say their piece and then, talk to the client afterwards? I think most of the families that come to us, no, they're not in an adversarial relationship. They're in a partnership, because that's what I like to say to my clients. We're a partnership. I'm not going to make any decisions and take away your autonomy. And I would
Yeah.
expect you to bring to my attention things that are important to you. Whereas a physician is going to say, this is how it's being done. This is how it's going to be executed. And there's no room for debate. And I don't think all physicians go into it with the intention of being, what's the word I'm looking for? Dismissive and overbearing. I do think most people go into that particular medical career because they really do want to help people. But I think that as time goes on, they just get beat down and it's just easier to go with the flow. There's a doctor
Always said there was
here.
a 7-year shelf life. Always said that about natural childbirth
Yeah.
doctors.
And it's funny. I always think, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for longer than 7 years. What is wrong with me?
What I thought of, and maybe I swear I'm going to stop talking after this and you can call us out of this. We were going to talk about preparing for postpartum, but maybe we just throw that on a postpartum thing. I lived in like this regimented household, right? Where there was like a right and wrong, and you were punished when you didn't do that right and wrong. I didn't have my own autonomy at home, like as a child, and that's common. Eventually I met my husband. I joined a religion that also then told me, this is how you live your life. These are the decisions you made. It was very patriarchal. I was definitely the wife. I wasn't even allowed to say, hey, can we gather around and bless the food? Only someone, the patriarch, as part of the patriarch, could do that. I got called out on a few occasions in family gatherings where they'd talk to one of the men and be like, could you call out and ask someone to pray, right? I did that for 30 years where I just had no voice, and I'm trying to find my voice. And now that I've left that organization, and it's been like 2.5 years, me trying to find my voice as a woman who has had limited access to my voice, I'm screwing up all the time. I'm not communicating well. I'm not knowing how to fight for my autonomy. I'm not knowing how to fight for the things I need. I don't know the right language. Why I'm bringing this up is because I think systemically, when we look at the hospital, you have women that are coming from these homes where fighting for self, we're told we're difficult, we're extra, we're
Amen.
combative, we're critical, we're condescending. If we fight for what we want, we just get told the way we're doing it is wrong a lot. I've really struggled over the last 2.5 years. Setting boundaries for the things that help keep me healthy has been difficult and hard. Sometimes I unintentionally hurt the people around me because I'm not doing it well. I would say to care providers and hospital institutions, become a space where women learn to find the right words, advocate for themselves, where their autonomy becomes true autonomy, where regardless of their words, we respect them in the moment and we cater to what they need, whether that's to go to the bathroom, have a bowl of oat. I know that's hard to advocate for oneself. And it's really easy to grab onto the shame that comes from feeling less than. or not worthy of being allowed to
Yep.
do anything. And I think that would be what I would say in conclusion. Look through it and know what your needs are. And maybe this isn't even a super big important thing, but if autonomy is, and if you want to be respected, practice maybe advocating for yourself in small ways and let the people in your life, hey, I am learning how to advocate my need without hurting the
and
people
here's the
around
other
me,
thing.
but protecting myself.
I pointed this out to someone yesterday. No is a complete sentence. Like if someone says no, just accept it. No, period. No exclamation point. That is a complete sentence. Just like yes is a complete sentence. But no doesn't get respected. I really feel like when women say no, it's, oh, but you really just mean maybe.
I also think of the word coercion.
Yes.
I can't help but when you said that, when you said no, I thought coercion.
It's like, you don't really mean that.
Or this is my opportunity to convince you.
Yes.
To convince you
Right.
that
I'm
you
going to be the
don't
convincer.
feel the
I'm
way
gonna-
you really
yes,
do.
I'm going to tell you that
Yes.
you're wrong and you really should be saying yes. That's not the way it works.
And coercion to me is like a dirty word. Getting someone to do your bidding and removing their will, right?
coercion.
I think that's powerful. So
It
I would
is.
say as a pregnant human, yeah, you looked at the things that are important to you. And I think, we think of nutrition and eating and you just think it's this subject where you're like, oh yeah, okay, big deal. But to me,
It's a big deal.
it is,
Huge
to me,
deal.
it's the straw on the camel's back.
Or even,
Because
I would
it's
even
such
say
a-
the cornerstone, because if you don't have
Eating?
yeah,
eating
eating
and
and
hydration,
drinking. Yeah.
you can't build on that. So if your
Yeah.
foundation, if your cornerstone is not solid to begin with, they're setting you up for failure. And I don't
And
like saying that, but
hire a doula. One of my favorite things to say is that, especially in consults, I go, I am removing myself. Yeah, I have my biases. Yeah, I'm a home birth midwife too. So I have these ideals about things that I really like to see women do. But at the end of the day, right now, as your doula, my job is to educate you,
so
give
can
you
make
risks
decisions.
and rewards. I don't care if you want to have your baby swinging from
You're from the chandelier.
fan. If that's
Yep.
what you want to do, I dig it. My thing is that you need to be making the decisions for you and your family, not your mama, not your care provider. My thing as a doula is that you are making the decisions. If that's eating in labor, if that's how you want to push, if you want to get up and walk around, you're making that decision. If you want to get an epidural, you are making the decision. That's the bottom line for me. So, I mean, hire a doula, because to have someone give you this information and let you know how important your autonomy is so valuable, especially when we feel shame from being women and being marginalized because of so many different things in our society, right? When you can have someone who's saying, hey, these are your choices, it's super valuable. So hire a doula. That's my call to action. Hire yourself a doula.
You learn how. I think, this grasping this idea that we could be mentors to each other. Do you know what I mean? That everyone has a skill. I think that ability to mentor one another. And you have to release ego and shame to receive. I think that's really beautiful, Jasmine. I think that's a really good call to action for sure. That you deserve to have that advocate. That's really beautiful. And the postpartum piece, being prepared for postpartum and what postpartum could look like, especially if you're breastfeeding. And that's a really great topic that we'll have a future video where we spend some time really diving into postpartum and some of the most important pieces of that. I think it's a great call to action. Don't be afraid to talk to your care providers and delve into that and find out what your insurance covers. Sometimes we look at these things and we go, oh, I just can't afford that. I can't afford to see a chiropractor or a nutritionist. Oh, see, and if you do some homework and make your insurance work for you, because there are some things out there. Even WIC has some amazing, I don't love like the food options in the grocery store, but whatever. But WIC has some really great resources. There's a few in your state, and kind of make your insurance work for you, or find a care provider that'll take payment arrangements. But I think for me, knowing that we put in our bodies was important. That's what encouraged me to become a certified herbalist, because I thought I essentially am taking responsibility for other humans. I should have an idea of what I'm doing, right? I had the privilege that I could afford to purchase a course, but now the web is full of a lot of or affordable resources. Audible has a lot of great books. Like I said, I was reading that one called Good Energy by that physician. Fill yourself with that knowledge so that you can find that power. I think that's really important. Like Jasmine said, just finding someone to advocate you so that you can find your voice. It'd be a little messy, but messy is okay, because that's how we make change, and that's how we do better tomorrow. We recognize what we're doing, and sometimes we fumble and we pick it up and learn a better way. And that's what the labor process really is. And then fumbling through that postpartum piece of, oh my gosh, now I'm juggling things I didn't know, because the unknown in every single pregnancy is something I want to deal with. Yeah, I think the next couple ones are on Black history. Welcome to February, my Valentine's Day thing. I know it's a Hallmark holiday, but kind of pink and red are my favorite. So I am excited for that. And I'm really excited to delve into Black History Month and talk about how that affects humans having babies, where the system has failed and where it's doing better. And so we're looking forward to sharing that with you in a very organic way. If you follow us, we have a Facebook group called Well-Rounded Mamas. That right now is where we're doing a lot of our data gathering. We don't have a delivered one yet, but we may create one. So right now we're just borrowing Well-Rounded Mama, because there's a lot of people in there, and I'm having someone moderate for us. If you wanted to look us up on Facebook, there's a lot of dialogue that happens there, especially if you want to be involved. Finding us on Spotify and YouTube, because we really want kind of more interaction with community. We want to know, like, what are you seeing out there? What is your story? Bringing evidence to light. There can be transparency. We can collect evidence and data gather. If you want to find us on that Facebook group or talk to us below in the video, let us know, what has your story been? What have you witnessed? What have you seen on both ends of that? Because I've also had sometimes a nurse call me and be like, oh my gosh, in the back end, I saw this thing. That's what we're looking for, is to interact with you so that our videos could be what you guys want to hear, and things that are relevant in the Las Vegas Valley. Obviously, anybody can watch us and listen to us, because, what we're talking about is universal, but we also want to make sure we're caring for our local community and that we can be a resource for that. So we planned our January to March without any guests, but starting in April, we are going to start having guests come on. So we have pelvic floor therapists, talk therapists, physicians, and nurses, and we have some really great humans lined up to share. It helps us when you let us know what you want to hear and who you want to hear from. Let us be that for you and have those conversations with those individuals.
Thank you for watching Delivered, where we are delivering mothers, midwives, and mayhem. Magic. Magic.
Yeah, we're
Thank
not.
you guys. We are not.
Bye. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, guys.